You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Public sector procurement operates under a different spotlight than private purchasing. The rules are intentionally formal and transparent, what we'll call FAR style, as shorthand for the kind of disciplined, contestable process common in federal acquisition frameworks. The purpose is not red tape for its own sake. It is to protect competition, ensure fairness, and withstand protests from disappointed bidders. Your success as a project manager is measured not only by what you buy and when you deliver it, but also by whether your process was defensible. If a protest lands tomorrow, your file must show that you treated all vendors equally, followed published rules, and kept a clear rationale for every decision. The artifacts reflect that emphasis on transparency. A well-written solicitation sets the playing field with clear requirements, instructions, and evaluation factors. A public Q&A record documents how you clarified ambiguities for all vendors at once. An evaluation plan and matrix show how you score proposals against the published factors, with evidence for each rating. Determinations and findings record key judgments: why you chose a vehicle, why you set a period of performance, why you accepted risk. The contract file ties it all together: the solicitation, amendments, evaluations, negotiations, award decision, and any change modifications. If it is not in the file, it did not happen. The PMI lens maps cleanly to this world. Publish criteria, follow the plan, and document your rationale. Publish criteria means the ground rules are set in the solicitation and kept stable. Follow the plan means evaluators apply the scoring method exactly as written. No improvising weights or new factors midstream. Document rationale means your file tells the complete story, from market research to award, with sufficient detail that an independent reviewer can see the logic and the evidence. That is how you build protest defensibility, not with eloquence after the fact, but with a meticulous record as you go. Scenario 1. A vendor submits a clarifying question during the formal Q&A window. The item reveals a legitimate ambiguity in the requirement, and answering privately would help them craft a stronger proposal. Your options: answer privately, issue a public Q&A amendment, ignore the question, or give a verbal hint. In FAR-style processes, the rule is equal information for all bidders. The ethical and defensible path is to issue a written Q&A amendment, update the solicitation if needed, and extend the due date if the change is material. That preserves competition, avoids claims of unequal treatment, and creates a clean record. Answering privately creates information asymmetry and invites protests. Ignoring the question leaves ambiguity that could morph into post-award disputes. Verbal hints are worst of all. Off-record communications are almost impossible to defend. A public Q&A amendment, by contrast, puts everyone on the same footing. The artifact trail is the amendment itself, the updated solicitation, and a note in the contract file explaining any schedule extension. This is FAR-style discipline. Treat vendors fairly and leave behind a record that proves it. PM: I will always reward options that increase transparency and competition. Scenario 2. During evaluation, a favorite vendor scores lower on price or on past performance. Pressure appears to adjust weights or find room in the narrative to elevate the preferred offer. The options: quietly adjust weights, apply the plan as written and document, rescore without basis, or cancel to avoid the outcome. The only defensible answer is to adhere to the published evaluation plan and matrix, document the scoring, and proceed. If the plan is flawed, the correct move is to amend the solicitation before evaluation, not to shift criteria afterward. Quietly changing weights, rescoring without basis, or canceling to avoid an undesired result are all protest magnets. They signal that the ground rules were not stable. Adhering to the plan does not mean ignoring judgment. It means your judgment is exercised within the factors you published, supported by evidence. The artifact trail includes individual evaluator notes, consensus reports, the completed matrix, and a determination summarizing the award rationale. If challenged, a reviewer can see the line from factor to finding to decision. That is the standard of fairness and impartiality. Scenario 3. Post-award, the agency asks for a scope change. The work seems minor, but it touches a requirement not covered by the original competition. Options: add the change verbally, issue a formal contract modification with justification and competition analysis if required, do nothing, or expand the work far beyond the competed scope. The correct choice is to issue a formal modification with a written rationale, including a competition analysis where policy requires it. The danger to avoid is a cardinal change, a modification so broad it effectively creates a new contract that should have been competed. Cardinal changes invite protests and legal risk because they sidestep competition. Verbal adds and do nothing are equally indefensible. They obscure scope creep and cost integrity. A formal modification records the request, the pricing change, the schedule impact, and the justification. If you must limit competition due to urgency or uniqueness, the file must include the determination and findings that support the exception, with scope boundaries clearly drawn. PMI's lens still applies. Publish the reasoning, follow the policy path, and document the decision. That is, protest readiness in action. Protest readiness is not a task for the end of the acquisition. It starts on day one. A complete contract file preserves every step: market research, acquisition strategy, the solicitation and amendments, the Q and AMP, a record, evaluation worksheets, consensus documentation, the award decision, and debrief notes. Debriefs must be timely and consistent with the file. They are not opportunities to rewrite history. Coordination with legal and contracting ensures that your facts, not your feelings, drive the narrative. If a protest arrives, a strong file defends itself. If the file is thin, no speech can save it. Timely and fair debriefings reduce protest risk by giving unsuccessful offerors confidence that they were treated impartially. A good debrief explains the evaluation factors, the offeror's strengths and weaknesses, and the comparative rationale without revealing proprietary information. It also aligns precisely with the written record. Surprises in debriefs new criteria, shifting explanations signal trouble. The ethics here mirror PMI's values. Honesty and fairness are not just moral. They are practical tools that lower risk. Treat vendors with respect. Share consistent facts, and you reduce incentives to protest. The first half of this lab shows how public procurement's rigor aligns with PMI's discipline. Publish criteria, answer questions for all, evaluate per plan, and modify contracts formally. The artifacts prove that you kept a level field and a steady process. In the second half, we will broaden the lens to include socioeconomic rules, ethics, performance and acceptance, and a mini-scenario on urgency. The goal remains the same: deliver value while protecting fairness, competition, and defensibility. FAR-style discipline is not bureaucracy. It is the scaffolding that keeps projects fair and protest-resistant. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Socioeconomic and ethics considerations are central in public procurement. In FAR-style frameworks, agencies often must follow set-aside rules or meet participation targets for small businesses, minority-owned firms, or other categories. These rules are not suggestions. They are legal and policy requirements meant to ensure fair opportunity. Ethical project management means confirming these obligations early, documenting how they are applied, and ensuring evaluation follows them consistently. Conflicts of interest must also be disclosed and managed, with strict rules against gifts or favoritism. Responsibility determinations. The evidence that a bidder can actually perform the work must be documented in the file. PMI expects you to see socioeconomic and ethics requirements as compliance constraints that shape procurement strategy. When you apply these principles, you not only protect fairness, but also shield the project from protests. A competitor who sees set-aside rules ignored or conflict disclosures missing has strong grounds to challenge the award. Vendors also watch for fairness in treatment off-record gifts or favors, even if small, erode confidence in the process. Documenting market research, responsibility checks, and conflict disclosures creates a record that answers these concerns before they become disputes. In PMI terms, you are integrating ethical values into process discipline, ensuring that fairness is as visible in the file as it is in your actions. Performance and acceptance in public projects are also highly structured. Contracts typically include inspection and acceptance clauses that specify how deliverables will be verified. The project manager must ensure that deliverable evidence inspection reports, test results, acceptance certificates, is captured consistently. If performance issues arise, cure notices or corrective action plans are required. These documents give vendors formal notice of deficiencies and outline the path to resolution. Past performance documentation, whether positive or negative, must also be completed because it informs future competitions. PMI's values of responsibility and honesty are demonstrated in whether these records are accurate and complete. Skipping inspections or accepting work without evidence may seem to speed progress, but it undermines compliance. If a later audit shows missing acceptance records, even good work becomes suspect. Cure notices, while uncomfortable, protect fairness by giving vendors a documented chance to correct issues. Past performance records are equally important. Favorable bias or omission of problems distorts competition in future procurements. PMI expects you to recognize that integrity in performance management is not just about the current contract, but about the ecosystem of fairness across multiple awards. Exam pitfalls in this domain usually revolve around shortcuts that bypass transparency. Off-record communications with bidders undermine equal treatment. Shifting evaluation criteria midstream invalidates competition. Undocumented modifications create cardinal change risks. Expanding scope based on winner's choice after award letting the selected vendor define extra work almost guarantees a protest. PMI exam stems may disguise these traps as pragmatic options, but the professional answer always aligns with published criteria, documented evaluation, and formal modification procedures. The heuristic to apply is plan, compete, evaluate per plan, and modify per policy. Let's test this with a mini scenario. A program sponsor argues there is an urgent need and pressures you to bypass competition. The ethical response is not to ignore urgency but to document it formally. That means writing a determination of urgency, choosing the appropriate procurement vehicle that policy allows, limiting the scope strictly to what is justified, and recording everything in the contract file. PMI expects you to understand that urgency exceptions exist, but they require thorough documentation and strict scope boundaries. Convenience or pressure is never enough. Evidence and rationale must guide the action. Artifacts in this urgency scenario include the determination and findings document, the limited scope solicitation or contract, and the urgency justification memo in the file. Communication with stakeholders should also reflect the documented limits, making it clear that the exception applies only to the urgent need. This protects both delivery and fairness. Without documentation, urgency exceptions become invitations for protests. With documentation, they are defensible policy applications. PMI exam questions will test whether you see documentation not as bureaucracy but as protection. The quick playbook for FAR-style procurement is simple but strict. First, publish criteria early and clearly. Second, keep complete and consistent records. Third, debrief fairly and consistently. Fourth, modify contracts only through formal channels, with rationale documented. Fifth, build a protest-ready file from day one, not as an afterthought. This file is not only for defense. It is the proof that fairness, competition, and ethics were preserved throughout. PM. I want you to internalize that ethical procurement is not an abstract value, but a daily practice visible in artifacts and records. This playbook mirrors PMI's broader domains as defined in the exam content outline: managing project compliance, ensuring project artifacts are up to date, and managing procurement. Each of these domains emphasizes traceability and transparency. In the public sector, these requirements are magnified by oversight bodies and potential protests. But the underlying PMI rhythm remains: analyze the impact, apply the policy path, execute transparently, and capture evidence. Public procurement simply raises the stakes, making process integrity as important as cost or schedule. The closing reflection is that public procurement teaches discipline at its highest level. Safety in construction, compliance in healthcare, or controls in finance all matter deeply. But in public acquisition, fairness itself is the product. The public must see that competitions are impartial, that decisions are transparent, and that records are complete. PMI situational questions will test whether you resist shortcuts and adhere to the published path, even under pressure. The professional answer is always integrity through documentation: criteria published, plan followed, and file complete. That is how ethical project managers succeed in FAR-style environments. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.